Welcome to Kind of Funny Games Daily for 31st of August. I am your host, Hussain, and I am joined by the Rogue One, Gary Whitta.
All right, mate. How are you?
I'm doing great, mate. How you doing?
I'm not bad. Are we deliberately leaning into really
We're
bad
leaning-
English accents
We're
here, like
leaning
right
into
away?
it. We're leaning into
All
it.
right,
So-
mate. How's it going?
What, mate? How's it going? Shine your shoes,
Yeah, all right.
governor.
Yeah, let's talk about some video games.
And a pub, shall we go? This is, of course, my first time hosting, and my intent is to just get as off track as possible, really mix it up so that way
Why
at least
not?
people remember. So first things first, Gary.
Yes,
We're both British.
we are. Where are you from?
So I was just gonna ask you exactly that. So let's get this going. So I was born in
Okay.
Pakistan. I was born in Pakistan, but then I moved to England, and I'm from East London. So I've always lived in Leytonstone.
Oh, well,
Leytonstone.
oh, bloody hell! You and I have a lot in common. When did you move to England?
Oh man,
How old were you?
I was about 2 or 3. It must have been
Okay.
like real young. Always
So you
been.
don't even remember Pakistan, I'm sure, right?
I do
You were too
remember it.
little.
I remember it. I remember it.
Oh, you
pretty
do?
well. Yeah, because
Oh, wow.
there's something about because I went back a few times, but then there's something about like I've always thought about this. Like I have very little memories of my early life here in England, but I have like vivid memories of my life in Pakistan. And I think it is because like the shock of the move like just cemented those memories in my mind.
Yeah, that makes
And then
sense.
yeah, and then like it's been so I have some memories of it, and I remember like because also like where we lived in Pakistan when I was growing up was we were like basically bottom of the rung, bottom of the barrel of society. So like we had a bad toilet situation, we had a bad electricity situation, we had a bad food situation. It's much better now, but it was like some of the things that people are used to these days. Like I've had to take many a dump in a just a field because that's all we've had. Like that was life for us. But like that kind of stuff sticks with you because then when you get to appreciate when you the good things that you have when you go on. So I think it's like
Well,
really
it's amazing to me that you mentioned Leytonstone because I grew up not far from there. I was born in. I'm a proper Cockney. I'm also from East London. I was born in Bethnal Green.
oh hell yeah.
But you wouldn't know I'm a proper Cockney because I've lived now in America for longer than I lived in the UK, and so my accent's kind of been very diluted by
Right.
the American experience. Accents are product of your environment. If you live somewhere for long enough, it's going to affect the way that you talk and your phrasing and everything. But I was born in Bethnal Green. And then I lived in Hackney briefly, and then I moved out. My parents moved out to a place called Chingford. I lived around Chingford and Walthamstow for many years, and Leytonstone, as you know, is very much in that
Right in the middle,
neighborhood,
yeah.
in that area. So yeah, you and I are actually from the same part of London.
Same neck of the woods. So yeah,
Look at that. Who knew we had this much in common?
Who knew? Yeah, like Bethnal Green, couple of stops on the Central Line for me. Like past it all the time. Queen Mary University is there, and I used to go there on the regular to meet one of my mates a few of my mates who used to go to Queen Mary there, and also one of the best like curry restaurants around in London is there. It's called Tayyib's. It's nearby around that area. And it's incredible. I used to also I worked in a Primark in Chingford for a real long time.
Oh, bloody hell.
Yeah, it was the Chingford one, and I also worked in a Romford one. And that was like
It's so funny. I knew you were British as well, but I never would have imagined that we were from the same like
corner.
such a small radius. That's much closer than I would have imagined.
Me, you, Jonathan Ross, and Alfred Hitchcock. Those are locals.
And David Beckham.
David Beckham, yeah, he went to Leytonstone, Leytonstone School. So
Yeah, he grew up just down the street from me.
Oh wow, that's wild.
And we both ended up doing roughly about as well for ourselves.
Exactly,
So
exactly the same.
it's a constant battle between me and Beckham. Like every now and again, over the years he's tweeted me, I just married a Spice Girl, just scored a goal at the World Cup, and I'm like, yeah, well, fuck you. I'm on Kind of Funny Games Daily, and so it's a constant battle for supremacy between me and Beck.
It's the classic Whitta Beckham rivalry. It's been going on for decades.
Oh yeah, on and on it goes. I'm still confident I'm going to come out on top.
I think so, and when the inevitable movie is made about it, it will end with you like standing on like a throne almost, and Beckham.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like in the game of life, it's only like half time. He's probably 4 or 5-0 ahead at half time, but there's a lot of time for me to come back in the second half. Don't worry about it. I'm going to end up winning on penalties at the last minute.
You had Beckham living down the road. Mine was Jonathan Ross. So like Jonathan Ross is so people who don't know Jonathan Ross, he's like a chat show host.
Mhm.
He used to host the what was it, Film? It was just called Film, the TV show, right?
It was Film whatever the year was. So like
Yeah,
Film
yeah.
85, Film 86 used to be hosted by a guy called Barry Norman. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Barry Norman.
I don't
And
know.
then when Barry Norman got too old to keep doing it, Jonathan Ross came in and took over. That's right.
Yeah, so he used to go to so Beckham went to Leytonstone School, and I went to Norlington School for Boys, which was where he went, Jonathan Ross, and his mum used to live like across the road from me. And my one run-in with Jonathan Ross was when I used to work at Game in the Stratford, not Stratford, in the White City, Westfield, which is a fairly new thing. But he came in and he was looking for a game. He was with his kid, and he was about to buy some absolute dog shit games, like just because his kid had been picked them up. And it was the same time that Batman Arkham Asylum had come out, and
Okay.
I was like, Jonathan Ross, um, let me recommend you a game. You don't want to buy any
Yeah.
of this stuff. You need to buy Batman Arkham Asylum, because knowing that he's a massive comic book fan, he's like a Doctor Strange fan,
Yep.
and he knows all that stuff. And he looked at me as if like, this nerd's trying to upsell me on a fucking brand new video game. And I was like, no, trust me. Trust me. I know you like comic books. This is what you want. And he was not having it. And he was like, listen, I went to the same school as you. And that's what sold him. He was like, oh,
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
I like this guy now. I like this guy. So I was like, okay.
I had my own run-in. So I met Jonathan Ross once or twice because you know he is genuinely a big video game fan, really like seriously into it. He's not one of these posers like, oh yeah, video games, but then can't tell you the name of any video games. He's really into it. And I was editing, video game magazines back in the UK around the time that, he's still on television, but he was on television back then as well. I had a couple of run-ins with him over the years, and like kind of had like a passing, first name thing with him. 1993, Jurassic Park press premiere, like the press preview screening in Leicester Square. I got a ticket. We went. Me and a couple of other journalists from whatever magazine I was on at the time, and we got there a little bit late, and it was a really, really, really long line. I was like, oh fuck, like we're gonna get like really bad seats all the way at the back for this. But I saw Jonathan Ross was in the line, and he was like right near the front because he's Jonathan Ross. I thought, let me try something here. I was like, this is either going to go down very badly or not, because he might not remember me. But I walked over and went, John, how are you? And it's like, and he looked at me for a second. I'm like, he doesn't remember me. He went, Gary. I was like, yes, how's it going? So, we've got to go all the way back to the line. He went, never mind about that. Here, cut in here with us. And he got us into the front of the line. So
That's
I still owe
amazing.
Jonathan Ross for that.
Yo,
well
man.
played.
What magazines did you edit, just out of interest?
So I started on a magazine back in 1988. I started on Commodore User, reviewing Commodore 64 and Commodore Amiga games. It was right at the time that 8-bit was kind of giving way to 16-bit. The Commodore 64 was kind of near the end of its life, and the Commodore Amiga had just come in. So it was right at that time.
Right.
So I did that for a couple of years, and I worked on the launch of a magazine called The One for 16-bit games, which was
I remember that.
part Amiga, part Atari ST, and part PC. And over time, as the Atari ST kind of fell away and the Amiga kind of won that battle, it became just the one for Amiga games. CVG, Computer Video Games, worked on that for some years. Ace, Advanced Computer Entertainment, worked on that. And then I went off and launched PC Gamer here in the UK. And then when they did the US version, that's what brought me over here.
So my first job in video games was for CVG. So I joined Future Publishing straight out of. So I went to uni, got a degree in law, and then there was some mad nonsense with my uni. Someone basically cheated on their exam, on their law exam, and they cheated by writing my name on their paper and then just absolutely biffing it. And then the uni got very confused by this very easily solvable mystery, and they withheld my degree for like a year. And in that time, I went and worked at Game. And then the thing that got me out of Game was getting hired at CVG. So I worked on CVG at Future, and like that was around the time. So the print mag was basically
when would that have been?
That was like 2000 era, 2004, 5. Like it was well after your time.
I was at Future like 93 to 96.
Yeah, the mag was long gone by then. It was like the online part of it, and it was they were trying to rebuild it, and then we basically rebuilt it, and made it a pretty big deal in the UK. And then I also worked on, like, I helped out with PC Gamer. I did loads of reviews for them, and a few other, like Official Xbox, Games Master, O&M, Official Nintendo Magazine. So I did.
I remember all of these.
Yeah, I did all the Future magazines before like bouncing out. Then I left and worked on around the Gamergate time, when that was kicking
Bloody
off, I
hell.
was like,
Yeah.
I need to step away from this, not because like I didn't want to engage it. I engaged the issue, but then I also realized there was a point where it wasn't about the issue anymore. It was just about this kind of cycle of hatred that people were kind of
Right.
just focused on. And I was like, I'm gonna go and remind myself that I have the capability to do a normal job because this video game stuff could pack it in at any time, and it
Hmm.
seems like it is right now. So I went and worked on the underground for a year, and
What
did
did you
like
do on the underground?
so I was a CSA, so I worked at like gate staff and then also platform staff. The next train approaching the
Oh,
platform
bloody hell.
is an
You
eastbound
must have some
central line.
stories from working on the
Mate,
underground.
I have seen some shit. I have seen some shit. Trust me. I worked there. Like I did shift work for like that year, and it was like 3 a.m. starts. I worked on Victoria Line South. So it was like Victoria era, Pimlico, Brixton, that kind of place.
That's what I used to ride to work every day.
Yeah.
The Victoria Line, Walthamstow Central to King's Cross,
Yeah.
and then I would change and do one stop on the District or Circle line to Farringdon because that's where computer and video games used to be, right off Farringdon Lane.
Right, right. Yeah, we by the time I got there, we were in Baker Street, so home of Sherlock Holmes, Marylebone, Baker
Hmm.
Street.
Hmm.
But I'll give you my before we actually get into the show proper. I'll give you my one favorite memory from working on the underground.
Go on.
I was standing on the other side of the gate, so where the kind of like the little boxes where people hang out when they're working there, and someone rode their bike down to the station. I think this was Pimlico, I believe, rode their bike
Okay.
down to the station, came up to the gate, and tapped their oyster on the gate, and it didn't open. And I was like, I looked at the actual heads up display. It's got a number on it, and you memorize what that means. And it was like, oh, you don't have any money on it. And this
Right.
person was absolutely furious at the fact that they couldn't get through. And they tapped it again. I was like, you don't have any money on it. You just need to top up, and you're good. He was like, no, I definitely have money on it. I was like, mate, it says on there you don't have any money. He got so angry that he threw his bike at me, like over the turnstile. He threw his bike at me. Obviously, this man like lifting the bike took him a few seconds, so I saw it coming. So I just like stepped back into the little booth and closed it, and it just landed on the floor. And I came out, and I was like, "Now you don't have your bike, and you can't get through." And this
Yeah.
guy just turned around and left, and left his bike on the floor. And I was like, "Cool, free bike,
Bloody
moving on."
hell. Well, Tam, I never knew that you and I had so much in common from very much the same part of the world. And although slightly different eras, transited through a lot of the same magazines and
Yeah,
companies and stuff like that. I had no idea.
yeah, mate. They were living parallel lives, kind of.
Brilliant, brilliant. And here we are now. Look at this. The parallel lines have intertwined, and we're hosting
Kind
kind of
of
funny
funny
games daily
games
together.
daily. We are indeed. And today's stories, they will include, we've got three major ones, but then we've got a couple of less, kind of, it's a slow news day, all right? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
We're
that's what we said before the show. Let's just we'll just muck about a bit
just
because there's
muck
not too much
about.
going
Yeah,
on in
yeah.
the news. I
We'll
said
get to,
when Jared and I used to host the show and there was not much news going on, we would just fuck about, and those
yeah,
was a
it
lot
was
of
good.
people's favorite shows. Certainly
It was good.
among my favorites.
We got a couple that are decent though. We got a new look at a couple of DC games that are on the way. We got Naughty Dog talking about their future in a not entirely unsurprising way, and then Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zero has been taken offline, and then we've got a couple in between. And of course, you are watching Kind of Funny Games Daily each and every weekday at 10 a.m. live right here on twitch.tv/Kind of Funny Games. We recap the news. And if you're watching live, you can correct us when we get stuff wrong, which I imagine will happen frequently by going to kindoffunny.com/you're wrong. If you don't want to watch live, you can watch later on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, or listen later on the podcast services that you subscribe to by searching for Kind of Funny Games Daily. If you want to be part of the show, which is a rare, rare treat, you can head to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where bronze members or above get to write in, and silver members or above get the show ad free, along with the exclusive daily post show. Housekeeping. So tomorrow, Wednesday, September 1st, Kind of Funny, and many people across Twitch, including myself, are taking part in a day off Twitch. This is to protest the lack of action from Twitch to prevent hate raids towards marginalized creators on the platform. It's been happening with an alarming frequency, and each and every instance of it is absolutely unacceptable. So we're getting together to show why it matters by stepping away from Twitch, by not streaming or not watching. However, if you are inclined to watch and you are inclined to stream, that's your business. Don't hate on people who are. Just make sure you share the kind of the campaign and do your part that way. This Thursday, Surgeon Simulator 2 is finally here, and Snow Bike Mike, aka Snow Bicycle Mike, is going to play it on launch day. The catch, written here with a question mark, is Kevin is going to use an IRL robotic arm to mess with Mike while Tim and Joey hang out. This sounds like a mess, and I can't wait. That's Thursday at 11 p.m. on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames, and then the VOD will go up on youtube.com/kindoffunnyplays. This Thursday, you're also getting a new episode of The Blessing Show. That's going to go live at 7 a.m. PT with a YouTube premiere on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. And if you're watching this live after this, Mike and Barrett are going to finish their first ever playthrough of Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. And then, of course, up later on youtube.com/kindoffunnyplays. Quick thank you to our Patreon producer, Black Jack. Shout out to you, Blackjack. And today we're brought to you by Purple Mattress, but you'll get to hear a little more about that later. For now, let's begin with what is and will forever be the Roper Report. It's time for some bloody news. We've got 5 flippant stories today.
God blimey.
Dozen.
How many English cliches can we fit in?
How many can I cram in there? First story comes from Eddie McCooch at GameSpot.com. You might find a few GameSpot stories in here. Why? Because I'm biased. I'm the managing over at GameSpot. I'm running this shit. I'm going to pimp my wares. Gotham Knights, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and Fortnite Batman crossover news are coming to DC Fandome. October's DC Fandome event will feature the video games Gotham Knight and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, along with the next Batman crossover in Fortnite. It remains to be seen how much of Gotham Knights or Kill the Justice League we'll see, but fans will be eager for anything that Warner Bros. Elects to show off or discuss. We are. The Warner Bros. Games account posted a teaser for Gotham Knights. Always watching, always listening, the tweet says. And it shows a mysterious person wearing a mask and a suit. So, Gotham Knights was expected to launch in 2021, but got pushed 2020. Kill the Justice League is Rocksteady's game, was announced at DC Fandome in 2020, and we've seen little to nothing of it. So, I want to go back to this actual teaser image. We've got Gary here, who knows comics and knows.
Yeah, I saw this earlier today.
And we got Barrett here, who knows his Batman inside out, and I'm also a Batman fan. Any guesses to who this is? Is it a relevant character? We see the Court of Owls mask on it. What are we thinking about this?
Barrett?
It's hard to say, just because, they look like bald generic thug almost from the back, right? Wearing, of course, the Court of Owls mask that we have seen in the teasers of Gotham Knights. If you don't know, Court of Owls originated in the Batman New 52 run with Scott Snyder at the helm, who has, I think, helped with some of the aspects of this game. Since they wanted to bring in the Court of Owls, they wanted to kind of work with the creator of them to kind of help put them into this universe that WB Montreal is creating. I could see this being just like a generic thug. I've always talked about, even before Gotham Knights was revealed, of if they ever do the Court of Owls, I think it would be a fascinating way to do the kind of similar to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where you have the Cult of Cosmos and you have to like go find clues throughout the world to like uncover each member and like go kill them. And I think that would be like a really cool system to have for the Court of Owls. Of course, you wouldn't be killing anybody as the legacy of Batman playing as like Batgirl and Robin and all that stuff, but like going around finding clues to uncover each identity of like each like lieutenant or whatever you want to call them for the Court of Owls, and like finding and capturing them, so that this could be like one of those people. But that's just like, that's very much something that I would want. I don't know if they'll actually do like a system like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's just more of like a fun tease of like, yeah, the Court of Owls, they can be anybody, and here's this generic man to showcase that even more.
Yeah, Gary, how are you feeling about Batman, Gotham Knights, and also the Suicide Squad game.
Yeah, I feel good about it. I just, especially the Rocksteady one, because we all know how good they are, right? When they're let loose in the DC universe, and Suicide Squad is cool again, right? Because the James Gunn movie has done great things for them. I think there's a lot of appetite for Suicide Squad right now. Rocksteady is a terrific developer. There was a lot of speculation. We all wanted to believe that they were going to do a Superman game, right? That felt like the next logical step for Rocksteady after doing several Batman games. But this could be just as good. I think it could be a lot of fun. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about Gotham Knights. I've been kind of in a DC mood lately, reading a lot of DC comics and just enjoying that in that universe a lot. I kind of feel like after the rough start they had with the movies, they're starting to kind of find their feet a little bit now with the movies, and just generally, I feel like the DC universe is ticking upwards. Does that make sense? And these games are kind of a part of that. So I'm excited for the Fandome stuff.
I've been this is my favorite run, but I've been dipping into and out of like reading the Grant Morrison run of Batman recently. Have you read that start to finish?
No.
You should try and do it. It is a bit of an elaborate ask because Morrison, he wrote for DC for a really long time, but he's like most writers, like return writers. He dipped in and out through eras, so he'd write for like an arc and then go away and then come back a couple of years later. But every time he's gone away and come back, he's always connected his last arc to his current arc, and over the course of like
Interesting.
multiple years, has created this extremely long, kind of ridiculous arc of for Batman, and it kind of, he's also looked into weaving into their events. So he works in the fact that at one time Bruce Wayne is missing and Dick Grayson becomes Batman and Damian Wayne becomes, and he like works off that as well. And it's a really fascinating arc that goes like really ridiculous places. But the only tricky thing is because of the way he wrote it and his involvement in it, it's like sometimes you'll have to find one obscure issue in from the like 1990s that has a really big impact. But thankfully, due to Comixology and other kind of like digital services, it's a little more feasible to do it. I'd highly recommend reading that arc because it is absurd and ridiculous, and it involves some of the most. At one point, like I think he led into the Batman Incorporated thing, where Batman franchises Batman.
Oh, I
out
do remember
of
that. Yeah.
yeah, so he was kind of like the maestro behind that. But my one of the questions I want to ask was, what was it like back when you were here for comic book stores? Because for as long as I've remembered, like being a kid, I've always loved comic books. But like the comic book store situation here has been abysmal in my time. What was it like for you getting comic books here?
Here in the, like, you mean since
In the
I
well,
came to the US?
when you were in the UK, like was it?
Oh,
Because
in
my
the UK, I never grew up reading like Marvel or DC comic. I didn't grow up reading Batman or Spider-Man. I was
yeah.
aware of them. I watched, the Batman TV show, the Adam West TV show, and I watched the classic Spider-Man animated show. And I think I was more of a DC kid. I was never really that into the X-Men or the Marvels. Now, these days now I don't discriminate, and I just like wherever the good stories are. I'm not like I would not consider myself like a DC person or a Marvel person. I think they're all great, and I enjoy all of this. Wherever the good stories come from, who cares?
Yeah.
But when I was a kid, and I'm going to throw out a bunch of really stupid British names that people in the chat are going to insist that I've made up.
Let me guess.
You'll know them. So I'll tell you
right,
some of the ones that I grew up on, and you can tell me how many of these you remember.
all right, go
The
on.
Beano,
Yep, 100%.
the Dandy,
Yep, 100%.
Whizzer and Chips.
Yes, I remember that one.
You remember Whizzer and Chips?
I think I never read that one, but I remember it.
Those are the three that I grew up. I grew up reading kind of Dennis the Menace and the Bash Street Kids and Billy Whiz and stuff like that. Desperate Dan and General
Dan.
Jumbo. Roger the Dodger. Remember Roger the Dodger?
Yes.
Oh, brilliant! So that's who I. Those are the comic books that I grew up with. Lord Snooty. I loved the Bash Street Kids. They were always my favorite when I was a kid. And it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I started taking an interest in, what we think of as comic books now. Superhero type comic books. But I grew up on British comic books, and most Americans won't understand because there's no, as I'm aware, there's no American equivalent of like comics like the Beano or Dandy or Whizzer and Chips and books like that, but just like fun stories about kids,
Mm.
and often, they had like a special power or something that made him interesting. Like Billy Whiz could run really fast. General Jumbo had like a little miniature army that he controlled with he had like a granddad inventor who created this miniature army of little kind of, army men that he could control with like a control panel on his wrist. And it was generally, there was like, oh, this normal boy has, incredible powers. The one crossover I can remember, I can't remember which which British comic it came out of, but it became very popular, and it was a more traditional superhero, and it was very British. Do you remember Banana Man?
Yes, I 100% remember Banana Man. I was just gonna mention Banana Man, but Banana Man was a real weird concept. Even now, I watch like videos of it on YouTube, and I'm like, this is bizarre. Even now, like,
Yeah, he was a little kid, and when it was kind of like Shazam, right? Because it was a little kid who turned
yeah,
into a big buff superhero, and whenever he ate a banana, he turned into Banana Man.
potassium. You gotta love it.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
it's all that potassium.
Before we move on to the next story, I just want to mention Darth Poopsie in the chat said Grant Morrison uses singular they pronouns. My apologies for that. But yeah, moving on to the next story. Naughty Dog teases the future. Single player experiences are near and dear to us. This comes from Eddie at GameSpot.com. We are all GameSpot here, pimping my wares again. Naughty Dog is currently making its first ever standalone multiplayer game. But what other projects might the studio make in the future? We don't know for sure yet, but Naughty Dog co-president Evan Wells said fans can look forward to the studio making new IP and also working on established franchises. I think the easy answer is both. I think there's excitement to develop new IP, but there is still tons of love for Uncharted and The Last of Us, and I think you'll see both kinds of projects from us in the future, Wells said in an interview with Game Informer. Naughty Dog's known for its big cinematic single-player story-focused games, and you can expect this to continue in the future. Single-player experiences are near and dear to us. It's what has attracted a lot of people to Naughty Dog, and it's what inspires them. So I think we're going to keep it as long as we can, Well said. Naughty Dog's Neil Druckmann is also quoted as saying in the interview, studio owner Sony has never come to them with a mandate to make a certain type of game. There has never been a mandate like, oh, this is where we see the winds shifting. Can you start making these kinds of games instead? We know just as they know that when you work on something you're excited by, something you're passionate by, you're going to do great work, he said. So, is that any surprise to you? And do you kind of feel like what is the future of what do you want the future of Naughty Dog to be? Because in my mind, the thing that I think about is they say that they don't want the business considerations to kind of implement or impact the way they make games, but more and more we see games like games as a service type experiences becoming the way to create a game, and also in terms of business sense, the most feasible way to get a return on investment. As someone who's got experience working behind the scenes, like what's it like? What does the future of a narrative-driven single-player game look to you? And do you think that kind of approach to it is sustainable?
First of all, I had a bit of a scare this morning when I looked at the show notes that you sent me, because that quote when was it Druckmann who said single player experiences are near and dear to us.
Mm.
That was the headline of the piece. And because I was still waking up, when I first scanned it, I didn't read it right. And I read it as Naughty Dog single player experiences are nearly dead to us. I'm like, oh, fuck.
God damn.
And then I read it again. I was like, okay, phew, a crisis averted. No, listen, I don't think so. Even as, games as a service, and, I'm having a ton of fun playing Aliens Fireteam Elite right now, which is a 3-player game, and playing a lot of multiplayer games. And they're definitely, especially after this year or 2 years now, as we're getting close to of the pandemic, we've seen this huge uptick in multiplayer gaming, right? Because people are using games as a medium to connect, whether it's Fortnite, whether it's Among Us, whether it's, Call of Duty, PUBG, anything, right? We're all connecting through these games. And so multiplayer gaming is becoming bigger than ever, and arguably eating up, a bigger and bigger share of the pie. A single player experience, a campaign, like when you think about like the Call of Duty campaigns, I mean, sometimes they don't even bother doing them anymore, but you blast through the campaign in 6 hours, you have a lot of fun doing it, but then it's done, right? Probably never go back and play it again. And then the real, experience of the game is the hours and hours and hours and hours that you put in, playing multiplayer over the course of the next year until the next one comes out. But there will. I don't think that I don't think it's an either or proposition. I think even as multiplayer games become more popular, there will always be a place, and there will always be an appetite for really good, solid, story-driven single player experiences. And that's good news for people like me who, love story and always feel like I'm happy when there's some kind of narrative context for what I'm doing, and strongly believes that games can be as fertile a medium for really great storytelling as books or television or film or comics or anything else. And Naughty Dog and Insomniac and the great story driven developers that are out there continue to prove that. So I think even as Naughty Dog now experiments with multiplayer gaming, I don't think they're saying, is this going to be our new direction? Is this going to replace? And then they clearly are saying it. They're not saying this is going to replace that. I think they're trying to figure out if they can also do good work in the multiplayer space as well. But I think for companies like Insomniac, Naughty Dog, my two favorite game experiences of the past 12 months. One of which I got to late, but I played Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart and Miles Morales back to back, and just had the best time with both of those stories, and was really reminded of just what a great time you can have with a really, really good narrative, immersive, single player, cinematic, story experience. So I don't think they're going anywhere. I think there's plenty of room for both.
Yeah, I think you're right. The interesting thing for me is like it's weird how the kind of the situation or the balance has flipped, where it used to be that most of the games were these kind of games, right? Like narrative driven single player experiences, and the multiplayer games that were doing something strange or different were few and far in between, and they stood out because of it. You had a game like a Counter Strike or a Unreal Tournament. Quake came along, and it was like a big deal because it was a multiplayer thing, and it was like, oh, this isn't just trying to tell a story; it's just about playing with people. And now it's the other way around, where everything has got some sort of online component, and you're drowning in mechanics that, when a single player narrative driven game comes out and it's like putting that first and foremost front and center, it stands out more than anything. It does, in terms of business sense, it might not be the most fruitful on paper, but it does make sense for Sony to really fixate and emphasize on them, because there's few other studios doing them as well as they are, and they are kind of presenting something unique by virtue of literally everything else following a trend, right?
Yeah, and then the other thing I like about single player games is that I feel like I can curate and control the experience more. Literally just last night, me and a couple of friends were talking about jumping into Apex Legends, which I've never played, but a couple of friends want to play it. They were trying to get me to play it as well. I'm open to the idea of playing it. I like battle royales. I like Respawn. I think Apex Legends seems like a really good game. I'm just worried that coming into it late, I'm just going to get my ass kicked by more experienced players. One of the things that I think that games still don't do brilliantly well is matchmake players of the same level. I've played a bunch of multiplayer games recently where I constantly seem to get matched against players who are, like, you can see the number, like their rank is way higher than mine. Like, why are you not matching me with other newbies who are just playing the game for like the first time this week? Like, at least give me a chance. And so when you go into a multiplayer arena, there are people in that arena who are going to eat you alive, and there's very little I can do to mitigate or control that. At least in a single player game, baby mode is right there. Easy mode, very easy mode. I like that I can adjust the experience, tailor it to a level where I feel like it's just challenging enough that I feel like I'm having fun with it. I'm being challenged, but I'm not frustrated. Right. I feel like I can I can fine tune a single player game to have a lot of fun with it. And until I feel like this is something my wife and I both been belly aching about it recently. That matchmaking needs to get better, to put players with basically put everyone in the same pool where they're all of a rough skill level. But these days, I feel like this is another topic. But I feel like public matchmaking in online games has still got a long way to go, based on my recent experience in terms of finding players of the same level and putting them together so they can have fun. Because it's no fun getting your ass kicked all the time. And it can be, I guess maybe it's fun, but I still think it's less fun to just be, whapping around a bunch of noobs all day and going, I'm just going to kill you all day. I want a challenge. I want to play players at my level. There's nothing more fun than finding someone that's roughly at your level and having like a really challenging, hard fought, evenly matched game. And you can do that when you're playing with friends online and you know who you're playing with. But in the world of random public matchmaking, I feel like a lot of players we're often still getting mismatched.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky balance for people to strike because the games that are most popular and the games that people want to play in multiplayer are the ones where, you know, streamers come to it and professionals come to it. And that's when the skill based matchmaking stuff starts to become a hot button issue for some reason. But it is what it is, and I do agree that I hope that we get to a place where skill-based matchmaking is a little more prevalent and is a little bit better. But moving on, so this was originally going to be a story, but I've reduced it to a PSA because I want to throw in a kind of an X Factor story into the mix. So PSA story: online services for Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain on Xbox 360 and PS3, and Ground Zeroes on Xbox 360, PS3, Xbox One, and PS4 are going to be terminated on May 31st, 2022. If you are still playing those games, that is when it's all shutting down. So get ready. The thing I'm going to throw in here is while we've actually been talking, the Dead Space stream has been happening. And out of that, we've had some new details coming about the game. So I'm just grabbing directly from Nibel on Twitter, Nibelian, who you can follow along with, and reading a few of the details that they've been tweeting out. Body damage is completely new, so they've overhauled the body damage stuff, and now you can remove flesh from the bone of your enemies, and that also serves as a health indicator. The way each weapon reacts to enemies has also
You know what they
been
should call that?
overhauled.
They
Go
should
on.
call that flay tracing.
Oh
You
yes,
like that?
yes, Gary. Yes, if anyone knows anything about me, I love a good pun, and that was a good pun, Gary. I like it. I like it.
I'll bring all the dad jokes all
Bring
day
it,
long.
bring it. I'm a huge fan of dad jokes. Some of the weapons in Dead Space are better at removing flesh, or as we now call it, flay tracing. They're good at flay tracing, and some are better than at dismembering body parts and so on. Each has a completely new damage model as well, and every part reacts to damage. Um, the zero G mechanic, which is what those games are pretty much known for most, I think they're the most atmospheric parts of it, have been overhauled and allows for 360-degree freedom and thrusters, like in Dead Space 2. And they also added new paths and environments with new challenges. You can go to and there's no microtransactions there, but you can go and check out that the archive of that wherever you watch your videos. But Gary, how you feeling about Dead Space remake? You excited for it?
I'm excited for other people who are into Dead Space. I never really was. I'm not. I don't really play horror games. I've said
Mm.
it before. Fatal Frame 2 on the PlayStation 2. That was the last one I played. Noped out of it. Never went back to that genre. So it's not my cup of tea because horror games they're just too intense for me. I can't deal with them. But I know it's a very well liked genre, and for people who are excited for it to come back, I'm happy for them.
Yeah, I mean, I remember playing this one the first time on my Xbox 360, and it was one of those ones where I love the horror genre and especially horror games. And it was one of those games, a rare game where I simply could not stop playing. And people say, "Oh, it's one of those games you can't stop playing," and it can mean a variety of things. I literally could not tear myself away from the screen. I was so immersed in it, and I was like such a good game. So I'm so excited to see it come back. That second one was excellent too, and then they really, really dropped the ball with that franchise for that third one. It was a wacky, wacky game, but I'm glad to see it back, and I hope that it kind of leads to a renaissance in that franchise. There's not a lot of survival horror games on the AAA kind of level outside of Resident Evil, and I don't know if is there a
Did you play
genre.
Alien Isolation? Did you like
I
that one?
I did play Alien Isolation. I liked it, but I also was frustrated by it a lot. There's something weird that came happened to me, where it's like the AI for the xenomorph was so good that my expectation became it needs to be perfect. So when it faltered, I felt a ways about it. I had a situation where it was bugging in a way that the xenomorph would enter a room and then just not leave the room and would just like stand around, and I was like trapped in a locker or something like that. And
Huh.
that happened to me a few too many times. And in a normal game, I think I would be fine with just reloading it. But on a game that's predicated on this is the most advanced AI we've given this xenomorph ever, it really like soured me to it. So I played it and really enjoyed how much effort they put into it, and how much kind of like they clearly love that franchise and the iconography of it, and kind of like the language of that franchise, and they put so much effort into it. But the actual playing experience of it was not great for me.
Okay.
Yeah, but I really want to see more of these kind of like survival horror games come back. They're few and far in between on this scale. And obviously, like, who knows why? Like, Resident Evil seems to be the only one that's really doing it. Um, we almost had a Silent Hill, but we all know how that went. Is there any other genre that you think is in dire need of a revival? It's a very broad question, but
I
I've been
mean, I
thinking a
don't.
lot about that.
I mean, I feel like horror games are actually very well served. Horror gamers, I think, are very well served these days, especially over on PC, when
Yeah,
there are so many options in the horror survival space, like just all out, horror. And then you look at kind of the dark picture stuff that's happening right now, and Evil Within. I don't horror to me right now does not seem like an underserved genre. And it's hard for me to say because I don't play them. I'm
Mm,
an outsider looking in. So a horror, someone who's into horror games like you could probably speak more authoritatively about like how
yeah.
satisfied you currently are with games in the horror space. But when I just go like look on what's on the shelves and see what's out there or what's coming out, it doesn't seem like the horror genre is being neglected by game makers at the
Yeah,
moment.
there's an interesting distinction to be made. Like, the horror genre is definitely being served really well, but uh, they're not the interesting things aren't usually happening in the AAA space. They're happening in the indie space. If you're into the indie horror games, you're getting some of the coolest ideas around, or have been in many years. Like Red Candle Games, they did Detention,
Right.
and I forgot the name of Devotion. Those two games are absolutely superb. Devotion was released, I think it was this year, after being pulled after some political controversy around China, and that is a standout game for me. But I
This is
guess,
why I say on PC in particular that when I go on Steam, there's so much horror.
yeah. There's a lot of horror. The problem with the stuff on Steam is like there's a lot of horror. The indie games do stuff really interesting, well, but it's also buried in a lot of like really shitty, janky horror that is like the remnants of the Five Nights at Freddy's era of like, let's just pump out some scary looking stuff.
What do you
And
think is this? What do you think is the all-out scariest horror game?
I don't know. There's something, I think for me, what scared me the most is kind of like a moment in time. So I remember playing Silent Hill on a PlayStation 1 back in the day, and the reason it was scary was also the reason was partly propelled by its technical limitations. Like the fog, the music, the kind of the grunginess to the aesthetics that were just a product of it being on a not very powerful machine, the PlayStation. It was powerful at the time,
Yeah,
but
I
like,
remember feeling that same way about remember Manhunt
yeah,
had that
exactly.
really gritty, grimy, kind of shitty look to it. It was deliberate, but the shitty nature of those kind of, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 graphics, I think you're
Yeah.
right, like, it actually kinda helped. That lo-fi look actually was a bonus for some horror games of that
Yeah,
era.
exactly. And now these days, it's more about the atmosphere as opposed to like, I feel tense more than I feel horrified or scared. I feel like the last time I felt scared was like Silent Hill, PS2, PS1 era, that kind of stuff. So that's
Did
the
you ever
kind of
get to a point where, like, you were playing a horror game, like, late at night or whatever, all by yourself, and you're like, "You know what? I gotta stop because it's too scary." Like, have you ever, like, noped out of a horror game?
I've never noped out of a horror game. I don't think I've ever noped out of a horror game. I remember the closest I came, and it wasn't really noping. It wasn't because I was scared. It was because I felt overwhelmed. It was crap. What's the follow up to the Penumbra games? Um, it's gonna frustrate me now. It's a well known PC horror game. It's the one where there's an enemy and it's invisible, and you are Amnesia. That's the one, Amnesia.
Yeah,
Oh
There's a
Amnesia.
god.
yeah,
I've never
yeah,
played it, but I've watched a lot of the Twitch stream clips of it where people are just, like,
yeah.
losing their shit.
So there's an area where it's like partially flooded, and the
Oh
enemy is
God, no.
invisible,
Damn, I
and the
can't. I can't.
yeah,
I have the
and
worst flashbacks right now with like my friends and I playing that, like taking turns on that section
yeah.
on PC. Holy
And
shit.
it takes a little while. It takes just long enough for you to realize what is
Yeah.
happening, for it to scare the shit out of you. And like, what is happening is, by stepping in the water, the movement that you're putting into the water, the waves you're creating, is alerting this invisible enemy to where you are. Otherwise, it
God.
can't tell where you are. And then all you see is the heavy footsteps of this unseen monster displacing water as it comes towards you, and you've just walked through this door and you're like, what's happening, what's happening? And that's where I like hit escape, and I was like, what, I don't know what's going on. And I was like freaking out. So I like, it took me a second to like regroup and then get back into like, this is just a game. You know how to figure this out. There's a bookcase on the floor in the water. Just jump on top of it. But it was
Can
there.
can you do VR horror? Because I know that's a red line for a lot of people. It certainly is for me.
I can do VR horror. And I don't know many games that I just got an Oculus Quest 2, the latest one of the
Hmm.
non-wired one. So I've been meaning to dig into that, and I do want to play them. I did play Resident Evil in VR, and it was good. It
Fuck
wasn't
me. You're a
as
braver
scary.
man than me. I can't do it.
The Resident Evil was okay. The kitchen demo that they previewed Resident Evil with was considerably scarier because it used it in a
So
really interesting way.
I'll tell you a story about that. Years ago, at San Diego Comic Con, I got invited. It was weird. It was me and Major Nelson, really. Weirdly, I don't know why it was the two of us, but
Mm.
we got invited to playtest PSVR before it was public. It was like a behind the scenes demo, and they took us back there and they showed us a bunch of stuff that was fun. There was like an asymmetrical game. It was like one person versus like four others. That was really fun. I don't remember what that was. We did like the London heist getaway
Right, yeah.
thing, if you remember that. And then the last one, they said, okay, for this last one, we're not going to tell you anything about it. Like previously, they said this one's like a heist game. This one's just like fun puzzle game. They said this last one, we're not going to tell you anything about it. And I said, well, tell me, you got to give me something. I said, no, it's better if you don't know what it's going to be. And I'm like, I can kind of know where this is going, and I know what my own limitations are. And all they said was it's called The Kitchen, and I was like, okay. I need to know what it is, because VR, like I'm one of those people that can have a really visceral reaction to VR when it's really effective, and horror in particular, it can be too much. So I said, just tell me something, and they said, have you ever seen any Japanese horror? And I just fucking walked out, like I just left. That was the last thing that the guy said to me, and I just left. But yeah, no, fuck that. That's not for
Yeah,
me.
that one is scary because it's like a very Saw situation. You're just tied to a chair and you're in the kitchen and you can look around, and over time, like it takes a little while, it's a slow burn, but you see a figure start moving around in the background, like a distance. It's like creating
Yeah. See, I
shadows,
don't
but
even
you're
like hearing this from you right
yeah.
now. Even this
Um,
alone is
but
too
like
scary.
the worst part of it was like the figure kind of maneuvers around you and then comes up from behind. So the first real indication that you have it's there is when you start to see its hands, like its fingers, enter your peripheral
No,
vision,
no, no.
and that's
And it's gonna have all the stereoscopic surround sound,
yep,
right? So
that's
you know when
exactly
something's
it.
behind you
So
and all that shit.
I
Nope,
remember,
nope.
getting a preview of that at Capcom's headquarters, and they had to assign people a safe word to shout
Oh
when
yeah,
it got too much. And I remember being outside and just hearing the safe word being
yeah,
shouted
yeah,
constantly.
yeah.
It's
My
wild.
safe word was "fuck off" right before I left. Yeah.
Piss off. No. All right. So we were gonna have one more story, but I think I'm gonna skip it. It's not a particularly big one, because we are running a bit behind. But before we do that, I just want to remind folks that you can subscribe to Patreon. Make sure you're heading over to Patreon and getting a subscription. That way, you guarantee yourself an ad-free broadcast of Kind of Funny Games Daily. If you did not subscribe and you aren't coughing up the cash for the good content, you're about to get an ad right in your face. Please enjoy.
This episode is brought to you by Purple. I know it may seem like it, but the world isn't really against us from getting a good night's sleep. Luckily, you'll have no difficulties drifting off to sleep on a Purple mattress. That's because only Purple mattresses use their fancy grid technology. It's a unique ventilated design that lets air flow through to keep you cool. I can tell you this as a fact. I have the Purple pillow, and I will never use another pillow in my life. I love it so much. It never gets too hot. It's always cold. You don't need to flip it to the other side because it's just cold already. I don't know how it works. It's the grid. It's cool. The grid is also supported for your back and legs while cushioning your shoulders, neck, and hips. Unlike memory foam, which remembers everything, the grid bounces back as you move and shift. Purple is comfort reinvented. Right now, you'll get 10% off any order of 200 or more. Go to purple.com/games10 and use promo code games10. That's purple.com/games10, promo code games10 for 10% off any order of $200 or more. Purple.com/games10, promo code games10. Terms apply.
So the final story was going to be about Halo Infinite, but Halo Infinite's a ways away. We don't have to worry about. But if I wanted to know what's coming soon to Mama Grub shops today, where would I look, Gary?
I'm sure, by the way, that we'll get to all the Halo Infinite news on the Xcast this Friday with me, Snowbike Mike, and I think Paris is back. The official list of upcoming software on each and every platform, as listed by the Kind of Funny Games Daily Show hosts each and every weekday.
Hell to the year. So we have Lamentum, which is coming to PS4, Xbox One, Switch, PC. We got Prinny Presents NIS Classics Volume 1, Switch on PC, Kiwi, PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X, S, all of that business. The Song of Iron, which sounds like a shelved Game of Thrones spin-off. Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One, PC. Rustler, which is either a brand, like an off-brand of like hamburger, or a softcore porn mag. We'll figure that one out. PS5, PS4, Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One, Switch, PC. Guts and Goals, not Goals and Goals, sadly, but that is on everything. Monster Harvest, PS4, Xbox One, Switch, PC. The Big Con, you can read a review for that at GameSpot.com right now. Seems all right. That's coming to Xbox Series X, S, Xbox One, PC. Slid the Snail, which sounds like one of Gary's old British comics, honestly.
We had a debate of if it's Slid or Clid on PS.
Clid. I don't want to say Clid. I mean, I've said Clid now, but PS5, PS4, PC. Beyond Mankind: The Awakening, which I'm sure, I don't know if that game is good, but you've given it the most generic name title there. Apologies to developers if you're watching.
I feel like you could do a character called Clid the Tortoise. Just if you really want to fly close to the sun.
Yes, that is. Oh, Gary, I wish you hadn't said that.
You started it.
Fair play. Crash Auto Drive. I feel like that is like the consequence of auto driving are in the title. You crash. Switch. Vilset PC. Soul Nomad and The World Eaters PC. Those are what's out today. New dates. This is where ordinarily we talk about new release dates or changes in release dates, but there's nothing going on. So what I thought I'd do is real quickly just give you an overview of September. Real quickly. Is anyone else doing that on Kind of Funny Games Daily? No, this is innovative. September 1st, El Shaddai. September 2nd, Bravely Default. September 7th, Sonic Colors Ultimate. September 10th, Life is Strange. September 10th, also Tales of Arise. Also September 10th, Pact. WarioWare, get it together.
The most important game on September 10th.
WarioWare, that's the big one.
That is the one. It's gonna bring joy to our withered, sad little hearts. September 14th, Deathloop. I have been playing that, I'm allowed to say, and what I will say is there's a preview up, and so far it's very good. September 16th, Skatebird.
I only have 2 days to beat Deathloop, so I can have time for Skatebird.
I remember Skatebird from that Kind of Funny showcase. Feels like forever ago. I'm glad it's finally coming out.
It looks really fun. September 21st, Kena Bridge of Spirits. September 22nd, Test Drive Unlimited is back. But you forgot about Test Drive Unlimited.
Test Drive is still going?
There's a new one coming out.
I remember I bought and played the original Test Drive back in the day. Awful.
It was really, really weird. They tried something and they didn't nail it. September 23rd, Diablo 2 Resurrected, if you're into that Diablo business. September 23rd also, Sable. Death Stranding Director's Cut, September 24th. Lost Judgment, September 24th. And then New World, September 28th. Outer Wilds DLC coming September 28th. I finished that game yesterday and I cannot wait. Hot Wheels Unleashed finally on September 30th.
What a way to end the month. Hot Wheels Unleashed, let's go.
I knew you were going to be hyped for that. That's why I put it in there.
Tam, have you seen the trailer for that? Tam and Whitta, have you seen the trailer for this game? Because it looks insane.
It is surprisingly...
What game is this?
Hot Wheels Unleashed. So we got approached to do like an exclusive reveal of it on GameSpot, and I was like, Hot Wheels. And then I watched the video and I was like, Hot Wheels. All right, let's go.
Hold on, let me pull it up real quick.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull it up on my end too. Hold on.
While you're pulling it up, I'll just do the deals of the day real quick. I just got one in there. Comes obviously from Wario64, who's just giving everyone a heads up that Xbox Games with Gold titles are up. And among them, you've got Warhammer Chaos Bane, which I've heard is quite fun. More importantly, Zone of the Enders HD Collection. This is, of course, coming from Konami, the Kojima team. A lot of Metal Gears basically designed by Yoji Shinkawa. So if you're into that kind of stuff, check it out. And
so I'm looking at the Hot Wheels Unleashed trailer right now. I've got two thoughts on it. One is, absolutely, I feel this has the potential to be a ton of fun, right? It looks like it could be really, really fun. And also, they have nailed the look of the die-cast metal on the cars.
Yes.
You know, that particular kind of reflective metallic sheen that they have? These really do look like the little toy Hot Wheels cars. They did a great job with that.
Yeah, I'm excited to play this. I think this is going to be like a sleeper hit for a lot of people.
Absolutely. When is this coming out?
The
That is coming
30th.
out on 30th of September.
Yep.
Oh, shit. That's
So,
only a month away. I'm
not
excited
long
about
away.
that. I'll play it. My kid will probably like that as well. I'll play that with my kid.
Get your pre-orders in.
Get it
All
in.
right.
That's. I guess is that on all platforms, I'm guessing?
I believe so, yeah. I think they're going to...
And I'm going to be annoying. I'm going to do the thing that I do. Do we know if it's crossplay? Because I'm Mr. Crossplay.
You know what? Let me Google it right now for you. Hot Wheels Unleashed.
Because we are at a point now, if a game is not crossplay, you better have a good
into it.
fucking reason why not.
It's unknown. It's unknown.
Unknown?
Unknown. We don't
Fucking
know.
hell.
There's still time. Everyone go to Twitter
There's
at
still time.
the Hot Wheels account and tell them crossplay it up.
Crossplay it up.
Right, now it's time for the reader mail. You can write into patreon.com/kindafunny where you can get your questions read on the show, just like Takibi, who says, after reading the comments from Neil from Neil and Evan from Naughty Dog, I have to say I was extremely disappointed, particularly their views on crunch and unionization. To me, their comments sounded very Activision Blizzard, corporate, without feeling and not really engaging with the question. This was surprising considering that Insomniac famously did not crunch at all for Ratchet and Clank. My question is this. As they are a part of the PlayStation Studios, do you think that they should take a top-down approach from PlayStation and adopt a more Insomniac approach and denounce crunch across the board, or should different studios still have control over studio policies? What do you think about that, Gary?
I think that all companies, need to prioritize mitigating crunch as much as possible. The physical and mental well-being of the people that work at these companies should always be a top priority. It does sound like, there are some companies that are doing better than others. Insomniac, again, famously, all their employees will come again. Yep, no crunch. We just made a great game without crunch. Whatever the magic formula is over there, they seem to have cracked it. Naughty Dog, again, they make great games, but there's always that little, but at what cost, right? With some of this, and these days we live in a very socially aware time, rightly so, and so we don't just go, thank you very much for the game. I don't care like what it took to make it. I remember when my wife and I got engaged, my wife wanted to make sure that her ring didn't have a conflict diamond in it, and it's obviously not. It's not necessarily of the same scale, but I think it's in the same conversation. You don't want a video game that is like a conflict diamond. I feel like I'm overstating, but you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to know that people suffered so that you can have a nice thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's enough examples of amazing games being made without crunch that it's kind of unacceptable now that a company that operates on such a scale as Sony is capable of doing is still like, not enforcing the policy of no crunch on their teams, because we all work in creative fields to one degree or another, and the best work comes from people who feel comfortable, relaxed, and like they're empowered to do good work instead of worrying about XYZ, their own health. It is wild that this continues to happen, and it might be like speaking out of turn, but at a certain point in a world where crunch is avoidable, having a studio that does crunch and acting like it's just a matter of fact is more example of mismanagement than anything to me. Like if you are
it's a solvable problem. You just need to have the will to solve it.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
sometimes it involves spending more money, which is the hardest thing to convince a lot of companies to do, but it's the right thing to do.
Exactly. So that's how we feel about it. Gonna move on to You're Wrong, because I obviously have screwed up a bunch of things. Firstly, I've got Kebab saying it's Snow Bicycle Michael. I don't like Snow Bicycle Michael. I know you all like it, but I like Snow Bicycle Michael. Because
I
it's
like
more
Snow Bicycle Bicycle.
Yeah, I also use Snow Bicycle Bicycle sometimes, which is quite amusing to me. But I would like to pass a motion that we change it to Snow Bicycle Michael, because it's more amusing and it's like a little more quaint.
I
I feel
like the
whatever way you
Bicycle
want to
because
come at it.
Sorry, Gary, go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I think they're all delightful. Everyone can. I think everyone should come at it from their own direction.
Yeah.
There doesn't have to be like one officially, approved one.
I just really like Michael because I think that was coined by Blessing, and he was so the way he started that and was so confident and thinking that Michael was like a word. It just I was like, yeah, I like that. Snow Michael.
Okay. I'll add it as an alternative then. How about that? That
I
works,
respect
I
it.
think.
I respect it. Thank you.
We've got one from MFAM, my fam, who says, "P.S. I love you." Has a new video up on YouTube talking about Far Cry 6. Thank you. Kebabs also says, "You forgot to do the yeah jingle after the official
Yeah,
list."
we
That's
just did Tam did a fuck yeah or whatever it was, and it was better.
Yeah.
Again, though, not every host has to be like Greg, right? You're supposed to bring your own vibe to the show. Do your own thing. Come up with your own gimmick. Be original.
And then we've got a couple saying the new test drive is supposed to release in September 22nd, 2022. Not 2021. That's my bad.
All right.
You know, I'm sad to say to everyone that we'll have to go another year without.
Can we last another 12 months without a new test drive game?
I don't think so. We'll find out. Tomorrow's hosts are Blessing and Andy, and then on Thursday you've got Janet and Tim, and then Friday you've got Blessing and Tim again.
What a lineup!
That's a hell of a lineup. That is strong. If you're watching live on twitch.tv, as I mentioned at the top of the show, Mike and Barrett are going to be wrapping up their first ever playthrough of Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. And then you'll be able to rewatch it on youtube.com/kindoffunnyplays. That's where you go and, you know, relive the amazing moments and chop it up with others in the comments because it's going to be a hell of a time. That ending is wild. Thank you, Gary, for being there with me on my first ever attempt at hosting.
Thank you for being an excellent host. I think you did a great job, personally.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. For now, we're going to head to the post show. Support us at the silver membership or above on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames can get this. And until next time, goodbye.